Reliability and validity. This content will be recorded and made available in an accessible alternative format upon request. If you require captioning, transcription, or other communication services to access this content, please contact the Disability Resource Center at drc@snhu.edu or 877-591-4723, selecting option 4. Today we're going to talk about reliability and validity. Review these quick outlines of how the different types are related just to give you a quick orientation. Don't feel like you have to memorize them. Just see the big picture and then we'll go through the details. Then we'll circle back to this at the end. When you think of reliability, you can think of consistency. We want the tools we use within social sciences to consistently get the same answers. When you think of validity, you can think of accuracy. We want the answers we get from these tools to accurately reflect what it is that we are trying to measure. A good example is using a ruler to measure the temperature of a room. We can measure the room today, it's 6 foot wide. We can measure next week, it's still 6 foot wide. Assuming the house doesn't fall down, we can measure it a decade from now and it should still be 6 foot wide. This is an incredibly reliable measure. However, we all know that you cannot measure temperature with a ruler. So while it's a very reliable measure, it is not valid. Okay, so let's get a thermometer instead. You have a good reason to believe that the air conditioner is keeping the room at a steady temperature. However, we measure it today and it's 65 degrees. We measure it tomorrow and it says it's 85 degrees. We come back the next day and it's showing 50. Well, that's an unreliable measure because the temperature is staying the same, but our measurement is changing. While you can have reliability without validity, you cannot have validity without reliability, excuse me. If something cannot measure a construct consistently, it is clearly not measuring it accurately. So we would stop the validity discussion here. It is not reliable, therefore it is also not valid. However, we really do want to know the temperature of this room. So we go out, buy another thermometer, and this time we check it every day, and every day it says the temperature is about 72. The daily reads for the week are in fact 72, 72, 72, 73, and 72. Is this reliable? Well, this is where it helps to know a little bit about our construct. Air conditioning usually keeps temperature steady, but we all know that sometimes it may take a minute or two for the air conditioning to turn on and get the temperatures precisely where we want it. So it is reasonable to expect that a reliable, valid tool might have a small degree of fluctuation for this construct. It appears that our tool is reliable. So, is it valid? Well, we could say that it has face validity. It appears to be measuring temperature much better than the ruler did. We could also do something with convergent validity. Use a calibrated thermometer and check it against our new one for a few days and see if that holds up. That would be a good way of definitively saying it's valid. Got that? If not, review this section of the video again or talk to your instructor some more about the basic concepts. If so, let's move away from these rather basic tools and think about how these same terms apply to social science instruments. Let's think about an intelligence test. Established intelligence tests tend to show reliability. Test-retest reliability is usually pretty consistent. That is, if you take a standardized test today and then repeat it next week, you should get a similar score. Various analyses show good internal consistency reliability. So if we randomly selected half the items and scored the two halves separately, the scores should be similar. We can be pretty confident that major intelligence tests are reliable. However, are they valid? Let's say that we have a new intelligence test. We've established that it's reliable. Now that we want to check the validity. Face validity is the most basic of validity. Basically, you look at a question and decide if it seems reasonable to measure the construct. A question that asks you to solve a basic problem seems reasonable for measuring intelligence. A question that asks you about your favorite color probably does not. If the measure seems reasonable, then it's said to have face validity. Next is content validity. That means we have some theoretical reasons to believe that the measures work. For example, if there was a study that showed problem solving was positively correlated with intelligence, as shown by other measures, Questions about problem solving would show content validity. Concurrent validity, convergent validity, and discriminant validity are all types of content validity. Instead of purely theoretical reasons to believe that our tool is measuring a construct accurately, you can compare a new tool against a tool which has already had established validity, much like we did with our thermometers. The results of the new tools should vary in a predictable fashion when compared to the established tools, depending on the type of validity being assessed. Predictive validity is the ability to predict future behavior. So if our problem-solving questions was strongly correlated with future college GPA, that would be predictive validity. If it was instead correlated with something unrelated, say the ability to win a race, but not what is typically considered to be intelligence, it would clearly be measuring something well, but not the desired construct, so it would not be considered valid. If our intelligence test showed both reliability and construct validity, we would consider it to be a good tool. Internal validity is a little different. It assumes that you've already decided a tool is reliable and has construct validity. The next question is the assumption that the independent variable is the one causing the change in the dependent variable a reasonable one to make? A dependent variable that changes prior to the independent variable or does not change consistently with the independent variable is likely not being driven by the independent variable. Going back to a simple example for a moment, think about pushing a button. If every time you pushed a button a light came on, you would reasonably assume internal validity. However, if the light sometimes came on before you pushed the button or sometimes didn't come at all when you pushed the button, it would be unreasonable to think that these two are linked. These studies would not demonstrate internal validity. Finally, if you pushed a button and flipped a switch to make a light come on, you could not state for sure that one of them was responsible. You would have to test only one at a time to figure out one or both was needed to make the light work. At this point, your study would not have demonstrated internal validity. However, with additional testing, isolating each variable, that could demonstrate internal validity. The last concept to discuss is external validity. An internally valid study is great, but you've only tested a small sample. Odds are good that you would like to extrapolate from that sample to a larger population. What you have to keep in mind for this is first the size of the sample. If you've only tested a tiny percentage of the overall population, external validity should be approached cautiously. The other important feature is similarity of your sample to your population. If you're attempting to generalize to the entire world, a sample consisting of primarily white, American-born college freshmen is not going to be very representative. However, you may be able to generalize from there to other college campuses. You might even be able to go from there to young professionals. This is much more a matter of degrees than a firm yes or no area. In closing, it is important to keep in mind that there is an order that you should stick to when discussing these terms. Remember, you cannot have validity without first having reliability. So in your work, make sure that you address reliability first. It would also be unreasonable to talk about external validity without having first established internal validity. After all, if your study is not internally valid, you do not want to apply it to other groups. In your work, this is the order that you should discuss the concepts for this class. You may not need to cover all four for every assignment, but you should make sure that those you do address are in the logical order. And, as promised, the two outlines again.